In all the hubbub about him being the King of Kings or the Son of God, I think we've lost sight of one of Jesus' most important traits, his humanity. The Bible portrays Jesus as someone people genuinely liked and wanted to hang out with. Presumably, he wasn't such a bore that he spent, every waking moment preaching or teaching. I mean, can you imagine hanging out with Jesus? Hey, Jesus, let's go fishing. Wait, that's no fun. Scattered throughout the Second Testament's focus on Jesus' sermons, teachings, and miracles are indications of the joy Jesus finds in breaking bread with strangers and spending time with trusted friends. Jesus is 100% human and loving it. But in the early church's zeal to introduce Jesus to the larger world, he became this larger-than-life mythological character, a demigod, the king of the universe. All this power and glory stuff surrounding Jesus, I think, has distracted his followers from the fact that he was a human being, and ignoring or downplaying his humanity has subconsciously contributed to us losing ours. Reading about Jesus as a human instead of a demigod is touching, encouraging, and it makes his ultimate execution even more heartbreaking. You can tell me that God died on the cross as much as you want, that Jesus' crucifixion is symbolic and meant to encourage us that God suffers with us, but frankly, I don't need a God who suffers with me. I've never been sure how that's supposed to even be helpful. And God dies with every human passing. That's just nature. If our heart breaks because of Jesus' execution, it better break because of every execution. Otherwise, we aren't half the human that he was. Jesus' murder is heartbreaking because he is a humble human visionary trying to abolish the world's master-slave system and replace it with something that recognizes every person's value and humanity. This human dared to challenge an empire for its cruelty and was mercilessly crucified for it. And then his message of peace and love was appropriated and perverted by the very empire he sought to destroy. For me, that's more heartbreaking and pertinent than a suicidal cosmic overlord. Also, exalting Jesus to the right hand of God has contributed to our current state of callousness and disrespect toward one another, and it ignores all the biblical scenes where Jesus is enjoying human connections and developing meaningful relationships. The Bible portrays Jesus as spending as much time with people as humanly possible. And he spends a great deal of downtime with one particular family, his close friends Martha, Mary, and Lazarus of Bethany. Jesus visits what I consider his second family 3 times. First, in Luke 10, when Lazarus falls ill. Then in John 11, when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead and comforts the sisters. And then finally in John 12, when Jesus visits Mary and Martha just before his execution. Martha, Mary, and Lazarus are not minor literary figures. They were significant enough to Jesus that he paused to spend time with them and even say his goodbyes before returning to Jerusalem for certain execution. When studied together, the Bethany passages offer a glimpse into Jesus, the human, whose heartbroken cries at the loss of Lazarus shake the universe, and whose love for humanity is so powerful that it transcends time and space. That is the power of human love. That's the gift of becoming fully human. In Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42, we read, "As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, 'Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me.' 'Martha, Martha,' the Lord answered, 'you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her.'" This is a distinctly Jewish scene with a radical element that we modern readers often overlook. Mary sitting at Jesus' feet to absorb his knowledge is not unusual for us, but at that time it was uncommon for men and women to engage in such candid theological discussions. Mary represents a new generation of Jews who embrace Jesus' more equitable approach to gender. She has no hesitation in shedding Martha's traditional role as cook and housekeeper, and Jesus has no qualms about speaking openly with Mary. The scene is revolutionary, much like Jesus, challenging the reader's expectations. But the passage is also entirely human, worthy of a Norman Rockwell painting. When I read about Jesus' time with this generous family, I envision a place where he could relax, kick off his sandals, lean back in an easy chair, and have a casual, unforced, profound conversation with a young disciple. While his own family is caught up in the drama of his entourage, I believe Jesus' Bethany family provided a safe space to unwind, a sanctuary, if you will. This closeness makes it all the more heartbreaking when Lazarus, the youngest member of the family, falls ill and dies. Despite his deep love for them, Jesus doesn't rush to Bethany when he first hears the news of Lazarus' passing. Now, this may be partly because Jesus himself is so overcome with grief. He's human after all, but it's more likely that Lazarus' death provides an opportunity for Jesus to demonstrate just how powerful human love can be. Jesus waits 4 days. According to the Jewish tradition of that era, that's just long enough for the soul to permanently leave the body. So by the time Jesus arrives, there won't be any doubt in anyone's mind that Lazarus is completely dead. We read in John chapter 11, verses 32 through 45. When Mary arrived where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died." When Jesus saw her crying and the Jews who had come with her crying also, he was deeply disturbed and troubled. He asked, "Where have you laid him?" They replied, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to cry. The Jews said, "See how much he loved him." But some of them said, "He healed the eyes of the man born blind. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying?" Jesus was deeply disturbed again when he came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone covered the entrance. Jesus said, "Remove the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said, "Lord, the smell will be awful. He's been dead for 4 days." Jesus replied, "Didn't I tell you that if you believe, you'll see God's glory?" So they removed the stone. Jesus looked up and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. I know you always hear me. I say this for the benefit of the crowd standing here so that they will believe that you sent me." Having said this, Jesus shouted with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his feet bound and his hands tied, and his face covered with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." For all the yammering that I do about the Bible as a collection of historical fiction, poetry, and various literary forms, most all of it allegory and metaphor, I so want this story to be real. Because if it happened, it means that Jesus' love for Lazarus was so powerful it altered reality. But literal or not, maybe the ultimate lesson of Jesus' encounters with his Bethany family is simply this. The power to change the world, whether destroying outdated gender roles or bringing love back from the dead, is found by extending our families until nobody is a stranger. But to create that world, we first need to be as human as Jesus. Amen. A question to consider today is, how does Jesus' humanity inspire you to act more humanely? How does Jesus' humanity inspire you to act more humanely? Let's go into a few breakout rooms for 9 or 10 minutes so we can discuss in small